I was crossing the river at dawn. It was just getting light, and I was jumping from stone to stone to try not to get my boots wet as I crossed this broad stream. And in the middle, I paused and I looked down the stream just to kind of, look up and down the stream just to check out the view. And when I looked downstream, just about 20 meters away from me, maybe 30 meters away from me at the most, there was a big male orangutan, and he hadn't seen me because he was doing the same thing as me. He was going the other direction, trying to cross the river without getting his feet wet. I just was so struck by the fact that what he was doing was so similar to what I was just doing. And I just felt like, two apes sort of passing in the morning dawn there.
We usually have to get up really early, so maybe 3:30 in the morning, wake up and then get ready, and we really need to be at the orangutan nest by 5 a.m. when they wake up. So that means getting ready and then hiking, could be up to an hour in the rainforest in the dark, using our headlamps to get to the nest. One of the things that makes it hard is actually finding them. They're primarily solitary, and so it actually takes a long time to find them. They can go outside of our study area. It may take us like a week of search days, of sort of person days, to actually find an orangutan.
It's not realistic to just walk out into the forest myself and go find an orangutan to photograph. It's not going to happen. So I'm always teaming up with a research team that are already tracking and following orangutans.
Orangutan.
In the whole world, orangutans only live in one area, the two big islands of Sumatra and Borneo in Southeast Asia. And within those islands, of course, they only live in the remaining good areas of rainforest. One of those is a national park called Gunung Palung, where I've been working for over 20 years with my wife Cheryl, and that's where she has her long-term orangutan project.
Our site is kind of deep in the interior of that national park, and it comprises 8 different habitats.
Taman nasional ini merupakan salah satu taman nasional terlengkap di Indonesia. Kondisi sekarang Taman Nasional Gunung Palung adalah tempat terakhir untuk satwa-satwa yang ada di sekitar, karena terjadi perubahan kawasan yang luar biasa di sekitarnya.
Gunung Palung National Park is this huge area, over 100,000 hectares in size. And Cabang Panti Research Station, which is where we've carried out most of the orangutan research at Gunung Palung, is only 2,000 hectares. And these orangutans, the orangutans we study at Cabang Panti, they don't necessarily stay within those 2,000 hectares all the time. So my goal was to stay with these orangutans for 5 days, sometimes up to 10 days in a row over the course of an entire year. By staying with them for these long periods, I was also able to document really unique behaviors that haven't been captured before. So before I studied biology and anthropology in college, I really had no idea that other species had culture besides humans. And so when I saw these cultural traditions in orangutans for the first time, it was sort of a really big sight to behold. It was my first day, and I was out early in the morning to go to Chodet's nest. And when I got there, I had never seen an orangutan in the wild, not even in a zoo, and I was under his tree waiting for him to wake up. Sometime around 5:30 in the morning, first thing he did was he let out this really loud long call right above me. It was a very powerful experience. It was not a sound that I'd heard before or anything like it. To me, culture is such a human element, and to see it in other species is really fascinating.
Culture means so much to humans, so almost everything we do is cultural. Both with feeding traditions and with social traditions, you see things that are inherited from mother to child, or sometimes adopted from friend to friend, that show that behavior has got this wonderful flexibility, adaptability, that is so much of a characteristic of humans and seen in the great apes.
So orangutans do this vocalization called kiss squeaking. It's done by pursing their lips and making a kissing sound, like this, like.
It's kind of like a real much louder vocalization.
The kiss squeak is a kind of a threat sound that they make when they actually meet an unfamiliar orangutan. They also do it to people sometimes.
In Gunung Palung, they do this using leaves. They grab some leaves, they bring it up to their mouth, they do this, the kiss squeak, and then they throw the leaves out. At other field sites, they may not use the leaves at all.
So this is an example of a local custom that's found in that area, similar to the way people greet each other differently in different countries. Maybe in some place, people shake hands, in another place they bow. So orangutans are also showing these interesting cultural variations between sites.
I've always been fascinated to understand, why we're human, what makes us human. We had so many kinds of humans in the past, different kinds of bipedal apes, Australopithecines, and we had some that went extinct and some that didn't and then evolved into humans. So, why is that? Why did some population of Australopithecines eventually evolve into the Homo genus?
I think that the human species is incredibly fortunate to have in orangutans and the other great apes, gorillas and bonobos and chimpanzees, representatives of what we came from.
We still share a very large percentage of our DNA with orangutans. Maybe around like 97%. Orangutans provide one window into understanding human evolution.
There's different ways that orangutans make umbrellas. One way is they just break off an entire branch and sort of modify this branch to make an umbrella. Other times they pull the entire branch towards them, make a little roof over their head. Some orangutans, when they're making a nest and it's still raining really hard, they would actually make a big roof over their nest. They can put together a bunch of branches and leaves and sort of weave covering, and that's a really effective way for them to stay dry while they're sleeping.
So all the great apes make nests, and they're the only primate that makes nests. That's important because they have large bodies, and it's a way that they can sleep in the trees where they're safer from ground predators. There seems to be variation in kind of some subtleties of nest building.
We heard some researchers from another site describing that they made a pillow to go in the nest. And we thought, oh, we've never seen that, right? But we'd never thought about it. Like, we just thought of making a nest, building a platform, and lying down, and we never watched that closely. Well, once we heard these researchers at another site say that they saw orangutans making a pillow, we started watching more carefully. And then sure enough, like, we noticed that orangutans at Gunung Palung were also sometimes making pillows, putting it down just as they plop down on top of it. And so as researchers learn more and more about orangutans and know what questions to ask, know what to look for, we're learning more interesting things.
It is so precious to be able to understand our connection to the natural world, to have these other species to give us lessons and remind us where we come from. It makes us, in some ways, humble. It also makes us fascinated. And yet, we risk losing them all.
Tapa mempunyai hutan dataran rendah Dipterocarp yang mungkin kalau sekarang adalah hutan dataran rendah Dipterocarp terakhir yang ada di Kalimantan yang masih tersisa.
Every bit of forest that's lost, where an orangutan can't live anymore because it was turned into an oil palm plantation or burned down, is not good for orangutans. And that's the main reason that the number of orangutans have been declining drastically over the last few decades, because of the huge amount of forest in Borneo and Sumatra that have been lost.
In 2016, orangutans became critically endangered. They are in the very top level of threatened category. Their numbers are decreasing at a more rapid rate than we had initially thought, and they are in need of sort of immediate conservation action.
There's going to be a race against time to be able to document what are the cultural variations before they just disappear forever.
Every orangutan life is really important. They only have an average of a baby about once every 7 or 8 years, the longest birth spacing of any mammal. And so with their slow rate of reproduction, orangutans simply can't sustain any kind of reduction in their population like that over the long term.
This century, we could lose all of the orangutans if it carries on at the rate of devastation in Borneo and Sumatra that has been seen in the recent decades. We stand so much to gain and we stand so much to lose.
Yes.
You can't protect what you don't know. We can't all go to Borneo or Sumatra. We can't all go to the rainforest there, but we can bring the rainforest to people through media coverage.
All right, first shot. All that practice yesterday paid off. Holy smokes!